Hello, everyone. Well, to Constitutional Chowder. We are trying to connect. Let's make sure we have good. Yep. All right, we're good. We are good. Here we go. Hi. And tonight, welcome. We've got a really exciting Constitutional Chowder for you. And I'm doing this a little bit earlier because I'm bringing one of the kitties to the vet to get a checkup, make sure everybody's healthy and well. So tonight I'm super excited. Two of my favorite amendments, the 5th and the 6th Amendments. I think they're probably your favorites too. So let's get started. The 5th Amendment, you've watched the shows on law and crime, and they're everywhere, or the movies about trials. There's so many classics through the years. I grew up on Perry Mason. If you don't know who that is, definitely watch it on some streaming platform because they're amazing. And so the 5th Amendment, you have heard of it before, the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The Miranda rights. So we'll get to that in a minute. The first one up, and the 5th Amendment is the first one we get to that has actually six parts. And the first actually kind of speaks back to the 4th Amendment a little bit. If you remember our 4th Amendment, it was all about getting warrants and having probable cause to have your property or your person searched and all that kind of stuff. Well, the first part of the 5th Amendment is for you to be compensated if the government were to seize any of your property. Now, having said that, there are a few exceptions. There always are. If the property seized by the government is proven to be somehow involved in a crime, or you have possession of it because of illegal activity, drugs, guns, stolen, possessions, things like that. I've even gone so far as to take homes and vehicles, things that had been purchased using funds that were made due to illegal activity. Those are all, kind of up for grabs. So, got to be careful there. Don't do any of that bad stuff and you'll be good. Now, then we get to Miranda, the right to remain silent, protection against self-incrimination, and then the other three we'll talk about in a minute: due process, double jeopardy, and your right to a grand jury. So when it comes to our friend Ernesto Miranda, all of that came down back in 1966. 1966. Now, all of these on the 5th Amendment were ratified in 1791, so these were rights. Those were rights for everyone, except the thing is, just like today, not everyone is aware of the rights. Again, I keep saying this. One, I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I'm just fascinated with the law. I'm fascinated with the Constitution and our rights and our contract we have with our local, state, and federal government, and their contract with us. And it is a contract. We live in a civilized society because we have rights, and they are required. It's expected that they know the law and that they interact with us in good faith, following the law that they are trained and advised upon. Because, as us as citizens, we're not attorneys. We haven't gone to law school. We're not expected to know every single little nuance when it comes to the law. Well, unfortunately, that's what happened to Ernesto Miranda's. Back in the 1960s, early 1960s, he was accused of a crime and he was arrested and tried and convicted. The problem was it came down that he was not advised of his rights. He wasn't told he had the right to remain silent. He wasn't told that he had a right to an attorney and other things. And so it got all the way up to the United States Supreme Court after the Supreme Court in the state of Arizona, because it was Melendez v. Arizona, said no, his rights weren't violated. Of course they weren't. So sometimes you have to follow it all the way up before they made a 5-4 decision. That's pretty close. And said that his rights were violated. So today, your rights need to be told to you in the language that you are able to understand. So regardless of the latest nonsense about there being an official language to this country, whatever language you can understand, that is what the Constitution requires you to be informed of your rights under. That's it. There is nothing in our Constitution about an official language. So, whatever games people that should be doing things seriously want to play regardless. So, with the Miranda rights, the right to remain silent means you have the right to refuse to answer any and all questions or provide any information without, if you do this without an attorney present, realize that all of that information can be used against you, to your detriment in a court of law. Really good idea to remain silent. Now, Miranda also brings to the forefront the right to counsel. That's why I'm doing both the Fifth and the Sixth Amendments, because they dovetail nicely together. I find it interesting that you have the right to remain silent. You have protection against self-incrimination, because that's what an attorney is going to protect you from. Like, okay, don't say nothing. We need to, what are you being charged with? This is what I would assume an attorney is going to say or going to do, because I love watching all the legal shows. What are you being charged with? What's the evidence? What did you do? Did you do, what's going on here? What's going on? Why are you even being questioned by the police? Maybe they just, need witness information, but we'll get to that in a minute. If they're actually reading you your rights, you're more than a witness. You're more than a witness. You're a suspect. So, and then due process. You have a right to due process, which is the whole legal process. I'll read you the definition in a minute. Double jeopardy, grand jury. But they waited for the Sixth Amendment to actually say you have a right to legal counsel. I find that fascinating, because I started studying the Constitution when I started studying the 16th and 17th century witch panics and throughout Europe, and then I really focused heavily on the colonial American witch panics in the 17th century, and I found it fascinating how none of these existed. Okay, those happened in the 1600s, the first one being in 1647 here in Hartford, Connecticut, the last one being in 1732. The last accused was in Colchester, Connecticut, which I happen to come from. I was born and raised there. The thing is, though, none of this was afforded to people except for the speedy trial and the public speedy trial and the public jury, being a public spectacle. Those were really the only ones that you got. To have witnesses, yeah. There were witnesses. Were they for the defense? Not usually. So The interesting thing about having legal counsel is back during the witch trials, it was literally against the law for an attorney to practice law in a courtroom in colonial America. There were attorneys, and they were very important because people that had money, land, and other possessions, they needed grants, wills, deeds, things like that, papers, official legal papers written so they could keep their money and their land, and they could give it to their, descendants and things like that. But the first attorney disbarred was a gentleman that walked into a court of law and tried to defend a client. It wasn't a witch, but it was, just a regular person that was in a courtroom and wanted somebody that knew a little bit about the law to defend them. And so this attorney did this, and he was thrown out, disbarred, and you could not practice law in a courtroom. So that took a little bit of time before they figured that out and changed the law. But after 1791, yes, you were allowed legal counsel. So with the Miranda rights, you had the right to remain silent. You had protection against self-incrimination, which is basically if you're being questioned by the police, keep your mouth shut until you have an attorney. And if you do want to just run off at the mouth, and they've read you your rights, it could actually go against you. You have to be informed that anything you say can and will be used you in a court of law. Now, Miranda rights and warnings are only required when law enforcement is conducting an interrogation questioning. But don't get it in your head that what you see on TV is what it looks like. There's not going to be a light bulb, there's not going to be like, a sweat box and stuff like that. I mean, it's not Shawshank. They could just be sitting down with you and being very sympathetic and understanding and want to be your best friend, depending on what the crime is, and try to get as much information out of you as possible. You could be completely innocent. I've talked to people that are like, I am completely innocent. Okay, great. Still, if you are in a room in a police station that is locked and you are not able to get up and walk out freely, then you are under arrest. Even if they haven't made that clear, you are being held in custody. If you're in a locked police car and you are not able to just open the door and leave of your own free will, you are under arrest or you're in custody. You don't have to be in handcuffs. I mean, just now, it's not that all the police are bad. I don't think they are. I'm very pro-police, hugely so. But just, they have a job to do. They have a job to do, and their job is not to worry about you as much as it is to close a case and take care of, whoever happens to be the victim, because usually in a crime there is a victim, and at the time they're far more important than anybody that might be a suspect. So, know your rights. So after that, due process. All right, so you're going through this whole thing. Due process. What is the definition of due process? It is the legal requirements that the government treat people fairly and follow established rules, it's a law, when making decisions which affect their lives. This due process applies to both civil and criminal matters. So right now, there's a lot of stuff happening in our country today in the United States of America where someone in government or people in government, higher-ups, you hear it a lot, trying to make you believe that some of these amendments or parts of them are not as solid as another. Every single one. We have 27 amendments, and they're all as solid as each other, just like the Second Amendment. Don't fall for it, because as soon as one gets chipped away, they all fall down. You might not like one, or the other, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is amendments that have been given to all in our country, and the ones that, you know, defend you and protect you, that's great. And some of them might not apply to you. That's okay too. But they're there for a reason. So let's see what else we have. Due process. Double jeopardy. Oh, this one's a good one. Double jeopardy is when someone goes through a trial. They're accused of a crime. They go through a trial, and they are acquitted. Okay. Well, once they're acquitted, which means they're found innocent, or, you know, the court makes a decision, you know, whether they're acquitted, they're innocent, or, you know, that's it. We're not going to try this. You're good to go. You're free. It's done. They can't do double jeopardy. They can't come back again and say, you know what, yeah, we're going to bring charges against you again and again and again. This happened in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692 to Rebecca Nurse. She was a pious, church-going, elderly lady. She was part of a family. It was like two families. It was very political at the time, even though it was more religious than not. And she was accused because the family in power was kind of against her family, and but everyone knew her. She had gone to church every single Sunday. She was very, very devout. There wasn't an evil bone in her body. They're like, if anybody isn't a witch, it's Rebecca Nurse. I mean, come on, this is crazy. So they acquitted her. And when the jury came back, the chief justice said, I think it was William Stoughton, said, no, jury, go back and come back with another decision. We don't like that decision. Seriously? Can you believe that? Well, they didn't have the Constitution. So the jury left and came back with, I mean, there's only two decisions. I mean, so they came back with a guilty verdict. And unfortunately, she was hung. So this double jeopardy is very important. It's a matter of life and death. If you are found innocent by a jury of your peers, that's it. And it needs, I mean, that's it. Now, if you continue to do crimes and there's other crimes, that's a different thing. But for that particular, and no, I've seen it in movies, and people have, you know, they play what if games. You know, someone's accused of killing someone, and the person goes into hiding, and the person is acquitted of killing, you know, person X, and person X comes out of hiding, and then the person that was acquitted kills that person again. No, that doesn't mean you have free reign to just go out and do that, because the actual crime the person was acquitted of doing was, there's a date, there's a time, and all of that. And if that person comes back again, say they weren't really killed, and then they were again, then there was a different date, a different time, different circumstances, different everything, you're still going to be sent to prison for killing someone. Don't kill people. That's just a bad thing. So don't think that that type of double jeopardy prevents you from getting away with murder. It's not going to. It might make for a fun movie, but if you know the law, it doesn't work that way. So then we have grand juries. And grand juries, a lot of people aren't really familiar with the grand jury. And a grand jury, no person should be charged or tried for a federal or capital offense, also known as an otherwise infamous crime, in federal court unless a federal grand jury first determines there's enough evidence to proceed. And a grand jury, you know, they will listen to witnesses, review documents, work with prosecutors, look at all the information. It's usually a pretty, really heavy, big, serious crime. And afterwards, I mean, and this grand jury doesn't know you. It's just people picked from the jury pool, and they come back and they'll either say, yeah, okay, there's enough actual evidence to indict this person, basically bring them up on charges and have a trial. Or they issue a no true bill, which means no charges are filed, and they might have to go looking in another direction for someone else. There's not enough evidence to proceed as you as a suspect. So, you know, having this grand jury is actually one of our rights. It's one of our protections and freedoms, because a grand jury is not just working with the prosecutor to try to hang somebody. They're basically the oversight committee for the prosecutor's office, making sure the prosecutor's office doesn't unfairly charge someone with no evidence. So if you know of anybody, I don't know, maybe nationally in the last few years that had been, you know, charged by a grand jury and then brought up on charges and possibly, I don't know, convicted 30, 34, 40 times, just throwing it out there, it's because there was real evidence. It's not a game. And the people that are chosen for this are serious about the job that they do. I mean, just think of the people you know that actually, like, literally go on social media to look for hacks to get out of jury duty. You know, this is a civil duty. This is a right you have to try to make sure the system works. So if you've ever said the system doesn't work, yet at the same time you've tried to get out of jury duty, you're kind of a problem that the system doesn't work. So this is how it works if you take it seriously and don't just look at it as an inconvenience for the moment. If everyone actually was clamoring to sit on a jury and try to do their part, you would see things change in this country practically overnight. That's personally my opinion, because we could change things, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So we've gone through the Fifth Amendment. We have Miranda. Property being seized needs to be compensated. It's mostly, when you see that, it's usually eminent domain for property that's being taken for government roads or military bases or something like that. They'll take and pay the owners, you know, whatever the going price is for the property. Miranda, you have due process, which is, you know, having the laws applied to you and your case should you have to deal with the legal system. Double jeopardy, you can't be tried for the same crime, the exact same crime, twice. And you have the right to a grand jury to kind of oversee everything, should it be a really, really bad crime. And then the Sixth Amendment, right to legal counsel, please. Oh my goodness. I had someone call me recently. Didn't know the person, but they called me up and I answered the phone and they're like, "This magic work?" And I'm like, okay, yes, but how can I help you? And they went on to basically say that they had been arrested and they wanted to use magic. They didn't want to go to court. They didn't want to go to jail. Really long story short, I did ask, have you ever done magic before? Are you familiar with it? And the answer was no. They had never, not even a birthday candle spell, like nothing. Yeah, folks, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, even people that drive a car have to at least take some lessons, practice, learn how to drive a car so you're not running over people on the road. Magic is not just something, well, somebody's just going to talk me through it and I can light a candle and boom, my whole world is going to be wonderful. No, there are a lot of physics. One, justice. I mean, if you are guilty of what this person said they were guilty of, oh, nobody got hurt, but they, yeah. Well, the first thing I told this person once I realized that they don't have time to learn the magic they need to learn in the time frame before they go to court. As I said, do you have an attorney? I'm not an attorney, but do you have one? No, I was told by everybody I don't need one. I said, you can get one for free. They're called a public defender. But everyone's telling me I don't need one. Who's everybody? The police. Okay, well, who else? Because I'm not going to believe the police. You know, I don't get that. Why would they tell you that? Their job is elsewhere. Well, my friend that was arrested a whole bunch of times told me I didn't need an attorney. Okay. Well, let me tell you one thing. I know attorneys, and I've known a few judges. Used to train with a few awesome people. Most judges were attorneys at one time. And it's just basically like an insult. You can get a public defender for free and you're just going to waltz into a courtroom and just say, I don't need one. Yeah, that's 2 strikes against you. It's disrespectful. It's just saying, screw the system. I don't care. So yeah, if there's a chance you might end up doing time, that's a real good way to guarantee it. So get an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be provided for you. If you have been arrested, if you have had fingerprints taken, if you've had a mugshot taken, you're going to court and you could go to jail. And if all your friends that have been arrested a whole bunch of times told you otherwise, think about that for a minute. Anyway, get an attorney. Know what charge you are being arrested for. You have the right under the 6th Amendment to know what you're being charged for. And if they won't tell you, again, keep silent until you get legal counsel. You have the right. Now, maybe if you're being pulled over on the side of the road by a police officer and they ask you for your license and your registration, getting in their face, why am I being pulled over? I didn't do anything. No, just shut up and do what they ask you to do and wait. They will eventually tell you why they pulled you over. If you're going to get a ticket or something, but, demanding and all of that, and all of this, no, just understand that you have these rights and that the time will come when you can exercise your rights. You're not going to be, trying the case right there in the middle of the street. You have a trial by jury. That is your right. Trial by jury. Sometimes you get a choice of doing a trial by judge. But if you want to have a trial by jury, you can request that. That is a 6th Amendment right. You have a right to an impartial jury. That's important. We usually say a jury of our peers, an impartial jury, and an attorney will help you with that. A speedy trial, and that's sometimes a bit of a tricky thing, depending on what state and what the situation is in your state. There are times that some jurisdictions have had people in jail waiting, 2-3 years before they've come to trial. And sometimes those cases have to be thrown out because they have violated the 6th Amendment when it comes to a speedy trial. 3 years is by no means a speedy trial. And you have the right to a public trial. So if you would like people from the public to come in, whether or not that means cameras in the courtroom is up to usually the judge or the state. There's additional laws, that have been put on since 1791. They didn't have cameras back then. You have the right to have witnesses appear on your behalf. That was different in 1692. The witnesses usually appeared for the prosecution. I saw her fly out the window. She turned into a bird. And, the witch that lived next to me, and that made my milk go sour. So, yeah, I saw her fly out the window, and people actually got hung and executed, dead. because of that kind of nonsense. I can't emphasize how vital our amendments are to our very lives. People have died before these were ratified. You have the right under the Sixth Amendment to order someone to appear as a witness for your defense. Maybe there's somebody that has information that you know could exonerate you, and they don't want to. I'm not going to testify. You can have them subpoenaed, and under threat of perjury, they will have to appear and testify honestly. And that's really important. So your attorney will help you with that. And your attorney has the right to cross-examine witnesses on your behalf. Do not try to act as your own attorney. Even attorneys are smart enough to get their own attorneys should they find themselves in need of a legal counsel. So what is so important, especially right now with that you might have heard happening in our country with agents around the country going and scooping people up and deporting them. And no, all of this applies to American citizens born and raised here, as well as anyone standing on American soil as we speak. I don't care if they're undocumented. I don't care if they're here, with all the papers they need or not. I don't care if people think they're acceptable or not. They are afforded all the rights of our American Constitution, just like everyone else. And they are afforded due process. That means they cannot be scooped up off the street or from a school or a parking lot without a warrant signed by a judge that has their name on it, that has their last known address on it, that has the crime they are being arrested for on it. And then those people are supposed to go to their home. They're supposed to find them there. They just can't start, breaking into schools or going up to individuals that kind of look the wrong way, or maybe they don't speak the way they think they should, and start asking them for identification. Those that, haven't learned in high school or middle school or whenever they're supposed to teach it about 1939, 1940 Germany, you need to brush up on your history. That is not who we are, and that is not what we are. We don't walk up to people and ask them for their papers. That is so highly offensive to anyone that considers themselves an American. And if you don't find that offensive, I have to ask you, why? Why? I can't even wrap my brain around that. These are for all of us. Because again, once they take any of these away, every single amendment, and I know a lot of people are real hot on that second one, they're all in jeopardy. Every single one can be taken away. So, next week we're going to talk about the 7th, 8th, maybe the 9th and 10th Amendments. We're flying through the Bill of Rights. So, and the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, they're pretty quick. And we'll continue. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. This has been Constitutional Chowder, and keep looking for my other videos. This one will be on my YouTube channel, along with The Magical Alternative, our TV show that is also streaming on Roku and Fire TV. And it is a late night talk show, entertainment show by witches, for witches, about witches, and all things magical. So please check it out. Thank you so much, and have a great night. Blessings.